Who here has been involved in a major car accident? Or been near a major car accident? Or been near a major catastrophic or a minor catastrophic event, if you want to call it that? Anyone? Yep. What's it categorised by, if I can throw it out to the crowd? What do we feel? What do we see? What do we hear?
It's chaotic.
It's chaotic. Panic. You feel panic. Anxiety. Yeah, some call it stress, but yes, anxiety. Fear. Perfect. Let me break it down and see if I can take you to a place of an accident, and it'll frame this. You've had a car accident. All of a sudden, all you can hear is sirens, radio traffic, police yelling, paramedics yelling. Everyone is searching for information. They're trying to find the thing that's going to enable them to do their job better. You as an individual, you feel adrenaline. You feel panic. You feel fear, all the way down to the sweat dripping down your face. You see blue and red lights. You see your pride and joy, your Audi or your BMW or your Datsun 120Y being towed away on a tow truck, right? You're seeing the glass on the ground, right? And all of this information is competing for your attention, all right? Now imagine you'd been driving that car for 2 days straight without a break, then you have your accident. Then imagine the ensuing chaos, those sights, those sounds, and those feelings go on for 6 weeks at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Joint Operations Room and any major headquarters within the military. Ours specifically isn't this one, obviously, for security purposes. I'm not going to show you ours. This is one that we found. Times that by 3. The Joint Operations Room sits in the middle, the dome, the circus tent, for all intensive purposes. And every one of those wings is a sensor, is a feed, is a perspective, is information drawing into the centre so that our commanders can make decisions and implement operations on the ground. It's categorised by enduring fatigue, stress, anxiety, multiple languages, multiple defence forces, multiple agencies, all competing for information and competing for priorities so that they can implement their plans in accordance with the overarching structure and overarching strategy. There's complexity. I'm going to say it again, there's fatigue. We're talking about 16 to 18 hour days if you're lucky. We can get up to 96 hour days if you're unlucky and more before you get a break. We have stress. We have complications, both real and simulated. Friction. If it's too quiet in the Joint Operations Room on an exercise, you'll have an observer trainer, someone like Dave used to be back in the day, go, you know what, it's too quiet in here. We need a catastrophic event. We need to make sure these people are tested, tried, so that when a fight does break out and something does happen real time, these people are ready. And that's just on exercise. That's a 6 week exercise. And we put our people through this, right? In real time, the people in that dome, in that circus tent, in that circular thing in the middle, are responsible for coordinating operations around the world. Iraq, Afghanistan, places I can't tell you where they are. But add those complexities, add that friction. Disaster relief. You want to talk about a cyclone coming in and pumping Vanuatu? They're the guys that coordinate the response. And then they also have an element that's ready, waiting, willing to deploy at short notice to any contingency that we haven't thought about yet. And all those feeds, all those sensors, and all that channel straight into that circle. Now, what's in that? What do we have to deal with that friction, that anxiety, that stress? Oh, wait, I missed something. Just because I like to throw in a bit of added friction just as everyone's starting to calm down. We're now going to roll out a brand new, untested, unpressure tested technical solution that allows us to monitor the battlefield, a battlefield management system that is going to allow us to coordinate and command the joint battle space. Navy, Air Force, Army. Brand new, never been tested. Just because, there's not enough friction in that tent. So we're going to do that. So what do we have? And we're just talking about operations, right? I'm not going to talk about planning. I'm not going to talk about, the higher up strategic level. I'm just going to talk about operations, the people that run that circle. We have a flamboyant, charismatic, well-spoken strategic leader. Okay, so he's the one that informs the strategic commanders and those guys at the top about operations. We have the most naturally gifted and amazing leader I've ever worked with. The man has an uncommon ability to absorb friction, absorb stress, and absorb anxiety, and even the most chaotic of situations. He's a nexus of calm in that situation. We have him. We have an MBA qualified infantry captain who's suave. He's got great hair, speaks really well, a little bit lazy, but he's competent. He still gets the job done. We have the nerd, and I mean that in the most respectful manner I can possibly say, because Dave and I, we have a high respect for nerds. We are nerds. We play video games and all that sort of stuff. Big children, right? And we've worked with them, and they are amazing in crisis because they understand the things that you don't when it comes to systems. We have the governance person. The one I'm talking about. Red flag here, red flag there. No, you can't do that. You can't do this. It's not achievable. They're my favourite people because I love proving them wrong. And then you have these two 6-foot-ish tall, 100-kilo knuckle-dragging thugs whose job it is to implement and execute the operations from that amazing leader, and then black tape, zip tie, and plug in this brand new system so that it looks like it's functioning amazingly, so that we can run this exercise that ended up being 37,000 people on an untested system, right, for the eyes of the world to see. Now, why are we doing it? Why the exercise, why the anxiety, and why the stress? Because I don't know if you remember this time in 2017, there was a pending potential fight with North Korea. And the only way to answer that type of fight is to bring as much power, as much combat power, and as much synchronization in our efforts to neutralize that threat if it came to be. So that's what we were doing. That's what we were testing. That was the scenario. So we've got this team, and it is a calm, high-performing team, right? It's a little nexus within the chaos. High-performing individuals, right? They're learning everything they can about this system. Mostly Dave and I, because that leader was able to buy us time by absorbing friction so that we can learn it. Learn it to the point of being able to teach it, understand it, break every security protocol we could find to get this thing working. You would have your security officer come down and be like, and you'd be holding these two cables. They go, hey, you can't connect those. I was like, well, these two cables? I can't connect these two cables. He's like, you can't connect those two cables, Captain Clark. I was like, what, like this? He's like, you can't do that. I was like, well, it's done. He's like, well, but you can't do that. I was like, it's done. And I'm putting black tape and zip ties around it right now, so you can't touch it. And he's going, well, that's the security incident report. And I was like, add it to the list. Add it to the pile. Because when a 2-star general turns around to the two knuckle-dragging thugs and says, hey, get this thing done, and you've got a knack for getting things done, you get the thing done. Righto, so we did. This high-performing team was able to deal with any complexity that was thrown at it in that tent. Because we knew the risks. We knew the context. So we had clarity. Right, we knew the context. We're preparing for a fight. And when you prepare for a fight, you train hard. And with the context comes clarity. We had the context, so we were clear in what we had to do in our little nexus. So what was evident in that room that wasn't, that we didn't take on, right, was transfer of anxiety, stress. Yeah, we were fatigued. That's what you're doing now. I mean, you're fatigued, you're always tired, you're always sore. We're okay with it. What we didn't understand is the impact that transfer of anxiety outside of our little bubble had on everybody else. So while we're succeeding, we've got momentum, we're killing it. We're smashing it. This team, you could put it anywhere and it'll respond to everything. It's resilient. It has this suit of armor around it with no chinks because it's formed in pressure. It loves it, actually, because every single thing that you throw at this team, it takes, it implements, and it gets it done. It's just adding to its armor. What's happening to everybody else? What's happening to the people in the wings, righto, that don't have the benefit of a leader who's notorious for being able to absorb friction, notorious for being able to absorb stress and angst and deal with both superior commanders and subordinates. He's cool, he's calm, he's measured, and he's deliberate in his communication. What happens to them that don't have that benefit? I'll tell you what, they get hung out to dry. Guilty. Dave will agree. Guilty. We protected our own. Violently protected our own in this situation. What else? What else do you think would be characterised by what we were doing? All the language that I've been using so far has been geared around a digital system and implementing a digital system because the digital system is going to win the fight with North Korea. The digital system is going to make everything easy. The digital system is going to get it done. Anyone, what does that kind of language say to you? It's not inclusive.
It's an abdication of accountability.
Abdication of accountability, because you can always turn around and say the system failed. The system broke. We never let it fail. We never let it break. And there were times there where we should have. We 100% should have let this thing fail so that we could learn the lessons associated with failure and create a more robust and a more successful tech system. But there was an over-reliance on the technical capability to do this. Guilty. We did not focus on the people. We owned the technical solution because we didn't trust anyone else with it. We didn't trust that people wouldn't break it. We didn't trust that people would undo all of the hard work that we had done to get this thing working. And we relied on it. We relied on it as an excuse to keep people off our backs. We relied on it as a reason why we could separate ourselves from people, and we relied on it so that we could protect the reputation of the team. We didn't let outsiders in. That language is a mistake. We didn't let outsiders in. I don't know if you can see, but we all look like we're on the same piece of dirt, in the same area, at the same time, doing the same thing. Tell me where the outsiders are. Nobody's sleeping. Nobody's eating. Everyone's fatigued. Who are the outsiders? Who are we protecting ourselves from? Succession. One of the biggest mistakes that we made as a team. We became the single point of failure for our organisation. The single point of failure for our organisation. Has anyone been there? Anyone been that person? Obviously. Like, if you think about it, you take yourself back and you go, if something happened to me, what would happen to my organisation? If you're that person, as a leader, you have made a mistake. One of the primary purposes of a leader is to grow other leaders, right? If you're not growing other leaders and we're looking at your succession plan, your point of failure, as you've been the single point of failure, then you're letting your organisation down. If you are the font of all knowledge on any subject and you haven't thought to pass that on to anyone else, then your organisation is at risk. And you are the cause of that risk as a leader. We were the cause of one of the biggest risks our headquarters had. So what? Success, right? We succeeded. We managed to run this 37,000 person exercise pretty well. Yeah. Our high performing team was able to deal with contingencies. We were able to deal with hiccups. We were able to deal with the situation and the scenarios changing. Like 3 o'clock in the morning at day 6, haven't slept for 3 days, and the generators powering the headquarters die. That's okay. We're okay with it. Because we'd created this little parasite of a laptop that held the whole division's information and data on it, and it had 4.5 hours of battery life. So we still held that data. Still held where everybody was, and then we had to switch back to our radios and get everyone's positions and command the battlefield off that. But we still had the last known location. Probably should have let it fail. Reinforce the systems that we had in place. That's what we should have done. We didn't. You know? When the plane full of 120 Japanese paratroopers gives us 45 minutes notice that they're going to drop into our area of operations and form part of our exercise, we're okay with it. This guy I'm telling you about, this leader, Benjamin Woolmer, cool, calm, measured, deliberate in his communication. Nexus of calm and chaos. All right, hey, it's just another thing. This is what we're going to do. These are the new boundaries. This is where they're going to operate. These are their tasks. Cool, calm, measured. It's more frictions. And they kept coming. They didn't stop. Team didn't stop. We're resilient. This team was resilient. What we should have done, right, is bring more people in to our group, our calm, so that we didn't amplify what was going on in the wings. We should have brought them along for our journey, our calm, the way that we dealt with things, so that we could expand this high-performing team and share the burden of anxiety, of friction, of enduring fatigue, and show people, hey, you know, it can be better. We can get through this together. We shouldn't have relied on the digital systems. We should have invested in our people. And not just the team. We should have invested in the whole headquarters, in their training, bringing them along for the journey so that if something happened to one of us, they could step in and do the job just as well. We didn't do that. We should have looked at succession, which is that bit. Should have built a redundancy behind us. We should have grown people behind us that could do the same thing. Right? Because guess what? If any one of us had gone down, right? Well, has anyone been involved in a car accident? So that's the JOI. That was our life. And you know what? That's okay. But I think it's an example of what we thought was a success, which it was, for face value, was actually a failure of us to bring people in and to expand our team, share the knowledge, and be better. So what questions do you have of me on that? We've got a couple of minutes.
Just one, I guess, because I agree that trying to bring everybody along on the journey, but you don't always have that luxury.
Agreed.
And so would you, given everything, that, you know, it's easy to sort of step back and go, oh, we could have done all of this succession, etc. But what would you have sacrificed if you had done that and then the entire group potentially was unsuccessful?
Yep. We focused so hard on protecting our reputation and holding that capability within ourselves that we didn't trust anyone else to do that. So in not giving trust, we didn't get trust. So while we were protected in our area, the organisation wasn't protected. And that's not like us at all. So what I would have done is, we had a short amount of time, right? But there were things that we could have done early to build redundancy in our own team, easier things that we could hand over earlier so that we could bring people on the more technical journey and understanding, right? I would have given Ben Woolmer to a lot of other people and had him mentor and cross-level across the organisation so that they understood, you know, you don't have to panic regardless of the situation. Careers are on the line and all that. So I would have done that. I would have sacrificed part of that time, cost, quality stuff. You know, in the Defence Force, we don't really look at cost as much. You know, we focus on capability. I would have sacrificed one or two of those things for a better capability overall.
One practical, functional way to answer that question is when we were actually doing this, early days when we were engaging with the designers of the software, you had these two knuckle-dragging thugs sitting there learning about infrastructure and tech and software and all this sorts of stuff. We should have brought people like the signallers in, like the leaders from each of the department heads in, to sit in on that training and watch what this system was capable of. Because what actually happened was we became top-level understanding about this, what this thing was capable of, but then it was completely reliant on us to cascade that information down. If they had even had 30% of the knowledge that we had in its capability, it would have had an exponential effect along the path. That early engagement was absolutely crucial in the change management space, because later on we paid the price, because they're like, well, we don't know anything about this thing, we're not going to touch it. So we basically may as well got a gun and shot ourselves in the foot. So in functional terms, early engagement, and that wouldn't have required any more impost on us. They could have literally just been in the back of the room, and that would have been enough to really accelerate that process.
And then what ended up happening, which was proof in what I'm saying right now. Like, when it comes to succession, you have to build that succession, not be a single point of failure. Dave and I left on a Friday, left the military on a Friday, a couple of weeks, around a month after this exercise. We left on a Friday, started our new jobs on the Monday, and they could not fill the void of knowledge, and it set the implementation of this digital system back years. Dave actually got called back in to OT on some of the things to help teach people how to do it. All right. Never underestimate the impact your actions can have on another human. Where do I start? When you form a high-performing team, you are protective of its reputation. Right? That's about a third of my platoon there on the right. And look at those guys. Average weight's about 100 kilos. They can run a 2.4 kilometres in under 8 minutes on average. They're fit, they're strong, they're smart, they're loyal, and they're a team. That's a photo taken in Afghanistan on the right of the platoon. That's a photo of me in a valley in Afghanistan. It'll become relevant a little bit later. In the lead up to operations, in combat operations, you are training. And you train hard and you train a lot. And you're away from your families, you're away from your friends, you're with your brothers, admittedly. But you spend a lot of time away from your families in that lead-up training. Mission rehearsal activities, mission rehearsal exercises. It's categorised by fatigue. It's categorised by the same stresses I just mentioned. But you are tested every time, because we need to know as a team that we're ready to go on combat operations. You know, we'd had the examples of Dave and his team filtered back to us and the sort of things that we can expect when we go over there. And we train these guys. They're fit, they're strong, they're smart, and they smashed every single one of the activities that we could throw at them, that they could throw at me. And because we had such a team, we looked after each other and we had each other's backs. What happens when you as a leader hurt one of your people? Anyone? You break the trust, right? Anyone else?
You destroy the culture of the team.
Destroy the culture of the team. So we returned from one of our, so this is in training, right? This is back in Australia, back on home soil. This is an exercise, right? So we just finished our last exercise before we deploy to Afghanistan in a month, right? And I have one of the highest performing platoons in the battalion. We get back. Whole unit's back, everyone's unloading their kit, everyone's handing back all their equipment, everyone's excited because they're about to go home and see their families. You know, there's high fives everywhere because everyone's just smashed their training and we're doing our kit hand back. There's an item missing. Who cares, right? Stuff goes missing all the time. Not fazed by it, except when it's a piece of night vision, right? Because our level of night vision capability that we have far surpasses the people that we're fighting. So if we lose a piece of night vision, we then have to let our allied nations know that we've lost a piece of this night vision and potentially the enemy has the same capability that we have. Anyway, so this piece of kit went missing. Okay, so we'll clear out all our kit. Everyone will do a search. We'll rip everything open and we'll go through it all, and that's okay, that's fine. One of my commanders was getting a little bit agitated with his men and his soldiers because people are starting to get a bit edgy now. We're a reconnaissance platoon, we don't lose anything. Well, that's what we're known for. We don't leave a sign. You know, that's us. And we still can't find this bit of equipment. The rest of the battalion goes home to their families, to their friends, to their loved ones. A month before deploying to Afghanistan, they're all at home. And my platoon is looking for this piece of equipment. I get dragged into my boss's office and I get given the old smack, verbal, obviously, which I'm not worried about. I've been yelled at before. I spent a lot of time on the mat, actually. You know, being a blonde-haired guy with a mouth that likes to run, I've spent a lot of time on that mat. So I don't mind being yelled at. Like, I'm okay here. Come back, still searching for this piece of equipment. I'm starting to get a little bit agitated now because the reputation of the platoon's on the line. The rest of the battalion's at home with their families, enjoying their time before they deploy to Afghanistan. We find the piece of equipment in my commander's pouch. Hadn't checked it. Hadn't checked his kit. Failure of responsibility on my behalf to check my commander's, failure of responsibility for everyone else as well. Herein lies one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in my life. I took the reputation of my platoon personally. It formed part of my identity, right? So I pulled him into my office to have a discussion about where we went wrong as a team, which didn't end up being a discussion about where we went wrong as a team. It went a one-way discussion on me ripping him to pieces for jeopardising the reputation of the platoon, for jeopardising the reputation of the battalion, for jeopardising our reputation as a team, which we wore like a suit of armour, like in the JOR, for putting chinks in an otherwise impervious shield around our platoon. And the thing about being a leader and someone that takes pride in their leadership responsibilities in knowing their people, knowing their vulnerabilities, knowing their families, is you have an unlimited amount of ammunition you can use back on them. It's something you should never do, ever. And I did it, and I tore him apart. Every weakness I could find, I ripped from him. And then we moved on. We found the equipment, everyone went home, and then we deployed to Afghanistan. Well, yay, everyone's there, everyone's doing what they need to do, everything's great, everyone's having a good time. Good time. And we're out in a valley, that valley, and he's doing a really good job with his section. He's awesome. All right, he's doing a great job. He identifies an enemy way before the enemy had identified him, which hardly ever happens. Right, he identified, he'd called it in, he was great. But what he wasn't aware of was the situation at large. He didn't have the context of what was happening in the greater area of operations. I did. Right, there was other stuff going on that needed to take priority rather than what he was doing. So I jumped over the net, break, and I cut straight over the top of him. Looking back on it now, if I'd had the context or had the understanding of how wrong I'd been initially, I would have known that that would have undermined his confidence in a big way. I've just cut him across when he was doing a good job. I didn't even think twice about it, just had to get the thing done. Fast forward, their section started having some issues, also started doing some amazing things up where they were, but things started to go wrong, and I called up to the patrol base because he'd been attached to a different call sign to protect them for a bit. I called through, I ended up finding the senior officer at that patrol base that he was at, and I was like, hey, can you put such and such on the phone? He was like, no, you go through me, I'm the senior. I was like, put him on the phone. It's like, no, you got to go through me. I was like, he's just an attachment for you. He's my soldier. You will put him on the phone. So I did, had a chat, and I gave him another review for the information that I'd been getting passed. I probably should have gone up there myself and had a chat with him face to face, and I didn't. So we came back, all the attachments that we'd had from the trip all disbanded, everyone moved on. I was promoted and took over as a second in command of another company. This soldier was put in under my command again. I didn't think anything of it. Everyone just got on with their lives, got on with their careers. Fast forward 8 years, and I get a message out of the blue on Facebook that says, if you and I don't speak and I catch up with you, I'm going to beat the shit out of you for what you did to me here, here, and here. Talk about a shot to your identity. I was a good leader. I was a good commander. I knew my people. Like, I would never, ever hurt my people, ever. I'd go out of my way to protect them. Turns out I didn't. My instant reaction to being told someone's going to beat the shit out of me is usually to put my fists up and like, let's go. Well, it's like in an ambush, you get attacked, you turn and fight. Exercise caution, because I'd learned a few things in my time at another role. I'd learned a few things. And I was like, you know what? It's time for me to admit accountability. So you know what I did in that message back to him before I could talk to him? The first line, I categorically agree with you. Categorically agree with you. And by the way, you missed out a few things in your assessment of me. My ability to deal with conflict was weak. My ability to performance manage was weak. My ability to communicate was weak, gutless. And I put myself on blast. And I was like, that list you had, mate, just reaffirms what I thought about myself as a leader back then. Bang. And I laid it out for him. Everything I could think of that I did wrong back then, and with the benefit of hindsight, experience, and more leadership, I would have done differently. I can't take back what I did to him. What I found out when I finally met up with him, because I put myself on notice, and he responded by saying, you know what, we've got something to talk about, and I don't want to punch you in the face. I'm like, okay, well, let's catch up. And when I first saw him, when I walked up to him, I did something Sure, I do, now, because I understand something a little bit different. I saw him, I saw his defensive posture. It still looked like he was ready to punch me. I walked up and I hugged him. 2 reasons. 1, I wanted to re-establish that connection that we had when we were a command team. And 2, I wanted to be inside his guard in case he wanted to punch me so I could wrestle. Self-preservation and survival, right? No, that's not right. I had nothing to be worried about this man. He was one of the most professional soldiers I knew. I had nothing to be worried because the person that sent me that message wasn't him. We had a conversation over a steak and a beer. And what I didn't know at the time that I decided to rip this guy apart, or what I didn't mention, is the louvers were open in my office so my whole platoon could hear what I said. You want to talk about making leadership mistakes, that's 101. Praise in public. Yeah? Critique in private. So we had a chat, and what I didn't realise is that his life was burning down around him at the time. So he wasn't focused. I'm not going to go into the details, but you can imagine when I talk about an infantryman, when they turn around and go, hey, my life is burning down around me, you can only imagine the things that are going on. He then medically discharged from defence, spiralled down. I hadn't spoken to him for like 8 years. And to find out the levels that he'd gone through without support from me, some of that he should have been able to trust. The fact that he couldn't reach out to me until then to tell me I'd done the wrong thing meant I had broken, shattered, and destroyed the trust with one of my corporals. Someone who I was sworn to protect, look after, mentor, professionally develop. Right? And I didn't do that, and I paid the price, and he paid the price. All right? We've now rebuilt that relationship because of the way I had to deal with it. Right? 1, never use the information and the influence that you have to harm your people. Take it from me. You will do more damage than even you can imagine. 2, never, ever act contrary to your values. And I'm going to leave it at 2 because of time. My values are integrity, service, and accountability. Again, I didn't even know what they were back then. It took a much smarter gentleman than me to run me through a values workshop so that I could learn what those values were. Where was my integrity? Do the thing I said I was going to do. I said I'd protect, mentor, and professionally develop my subordinates. Didn't. Where was my service to him as a human, as a person? And where was my accountability for my actions? That's something I can fix. I can't fix what happened, but I can fix the accountability of my actions by acknowledging that A, I had a part to play. I am 100% accountable for those actions. No one else. I had a choice in how I handled that, and I handled it poorly, and I'll live with that forever. And so will he. I hope providing that kind of context of where I got this so wrong means that next time we deal with our people, we understand. We understand the one thing. You can never underestimate the impacts your actions have on another person. Thank you.